Anthony Joshua should not take the immediate rematch with Andy Ruiz. That's my position on the situation, and my position has not changed. There have been a number of people in my Facebook boxing group and in the comments section of my YouTube videos who have been disagreeing with my opinion. And their main argument seems to be that Anthony Joshua could get frozen out if he doesn't take this immediate rematch. Because we know Al Heyman likes to keep things in-house as much as possible. And if he has all the belts, it's going to be difficult for anybody to get in there and retrieve one of them. Well, here's my take on it. I'm going to ask you a question with regards to whether you think AJ should take the immediate rematch or not. What is your objective for Anthony Joshua? Is it for him to make as much money as possible as soon as possible in the short term? Or is it for Anthony Joshua to give himself the best possible opportunity to develop as a fighter and become the best version of himself as a fighter that he could possibly be? What's your priority? Because if your priority is just to go for the short term, as much money as possible, then fine, go ahead and take the Andy Ruiz rematch. But if your priority is for AJ to become the best version of himself as a fighter that he possibly can, then I think it's a mistake taking the rematch. So I'm thinking of it from a fighter development point of view, not a money point of view. And some people have given examples of old school fighters who got frozen out and had to wait years for their title shots. And, you know, some of them are famous kind of hard luck stories of overlooked fighters like Aaron Pryor back in the days who couldn't get a shot against Tommy Hearns or Ray Leonard, or Mike McCallum who could never get a shot against Marvin Hagler. Well, there's a massive difference between AJ and those guys. And it's staring you right in the face. Those guys were chasing big paydays against cash cows. AJ is the cash cow. He's already had the big paydays. He doesn't need to go chasing any other fights out there. AJ's already made life-changing sums of money. He already has generational wealth, which will be passed down on through his family for, generations to come. So he's in a privileged position at this point, where if he wants to, he can take a step down from championship level and engage in some learning fights and develop the skills that he never managed to develop first time around becoming a champion. Because AJ was rushed. He was fast-tracked. There's no question about it. He would tell you that. Eddie Hearn has said it many times that AJ was fast-tracked. But in being fast-tracked, he didn't learn the kind of skills that he maybe would have learned if he'd taken a slower route. Now, I'm not saying it was all bad, them fast-tracking him, because at the end of the day, he has made all this money, he has achieved a hell of a lot in a short space of time, and he has learned a certain amount about himself, about the game, etc. But now, as far as I'm concerned, is the perfect opportunity to take a step down from championship level and learn the skills. Take time to learn the skills against carefully selected opposition, which he didn't get to learn first time around. Because if he goes back into the Andy Ruiz, rematch, and even if he wins, he's now got a target on his back bigger than ever because people know he's vulnerable. So rather than him being able to learn the right way, incrementally stepping up the level of opposition, picking particular styles to learn particular skills, rather than being able to do that, he's going to be limited in terms of the fighters that he can face if he keeps hold of the belts. He's going to have mandatory obligations, so certain fighters will be forced upon him, whether he likes that style or not, whether he's learned the skills to deal with that style or not. Those styles will be imposed upon him. And so what could happen is that he could end up in a battle for survival in a lot of his fights, a life and death struggle. And you cannot learn by being put in a life and death struggle every time. Yeah, you can learn certain things, but there are plenty of skills that you're not going to be able to develop properly if they throw you in the deep end in a life and death struggle time and time again. You're not going to be able to develop. Yeah, you don't take a novice fighter, who only just took up boxing a few months ago and put him in there against the top pro and tell the top pro, okay, go hell for leather. That novice is not going to learn anything. He's just going to get beaten up. Okay, now that's an extreme example, but even for AJ, who hasn't developed certain aspects of his game, if he's in life and death struggles with top contenders and fellow champions or whatnot, he's going to be, even if he is trying to develop his style and learn new things, he's going to be under so much pressure, he may not be able to bring those new skills out. He may just revert back to what he was doing previously, because that's what fighters tend to do. This is why, for example, when fighters are with a new trainer, it takes several fights for them to adapt to the new trainer's style. Yeah, because the first fight they're in, if it's an easy fight, they might be able to, implement that style. But the next fight they're in, if it's a real tough fight, you might see them implement the new trainer's style for a little bit, but then they revert back to type when it gets tough. This is what happens. Yeah, in order to fully ingrain the new style and the new skills into a fighter, you need to put him for a process where you're stepping the level of competition up gradually. You're not throwing him in the deep end every time. You have to give him time and space to get comfortable using certain techniques before you throw him in there, in a life and death. Yeah? And AJ now has the luxury of being able to do that if he wants to. Step down from championship level, take some easier development fights, learn them skills. And of course, it's been my view for well over a year that Anthony Joshua should sack Robert McCracken. Nothing against Rob, but I don't think he's the man to get the most out of Anthony Joshua's physical potential. That's my opinion. It's been my opinion for well over a year, and I've expressed it in various videos. So, yeah, he has the opportunity to do that, to do the learning now, which he wasn't able to do prior to winning the title first time around, because he was fast-tracked that time around. Yeah, now he's got the opportunity. He's in a privileged position now. Down to himself. I'm not talking about privilege given to him, privilege which has come about through his own hard work. Yeah? And some people are saying, well, AJ might as well take the rematch, because if he does end up losing to Ruiz, he can just go ahead and take the route that you're describing anyway, Hatman. So he can do both. He can take the rematch, and if he loses, he can go on this rehabilitation process. Well, what you're missing is the fact that Anthony Joshua is a human being. He, despite the fact that people call him a robot, he is actually a human. He does actually have feelings. And losing one fight in devastating fashion, in a humiliating fashion like he did against Andy Ruiz first time around, is bad enough. But to lose back to that same opponent, that would just compound the psychological trauma. Because losing to the guy once, you can tell yourself, okay, I did this wrong, I did that wrong, and if I change this and I change that, I'll be able to beat him in his rematch. So to build yourself back up and convince yourself that, oh, I only lost because of this, this, and this, then you go in the rematch and you lose again. Your self-confidence hits absolute rock bottom, far lower than your self-confidence was after losing the first fight. And therefore, that road back is going to be far longer for you. You're going to be asking far more questions of yourself losing 2 fights back-to-back to Ruiz than you would have been just losing 1 fight to Ruiz. So this is why I, along with George Foreman and many other prominent names in the world of boxing, believe that it's best from a fighter development standpoint for Anthony Joshua to not take the Ruiz rematch right now. Because even if he beats Ruiz, he's back in deep water and he won't be able to learn the necessary skills if he's being put in life and death struggles every time with opponents who now know he's very vulnerable. Lennox Lewis back in the days, he had this process of rehabilitation after he lost to Oliver McCall. Lewis wasn't a massive cash cow the way AJ is. Yeah, Lewis was desperate for the it was really Frank Maloney was more desperate than Lewis for the rematch. If you saw Lewis against Lionel Butler, which was his first fight coming back after the Oliver McCall loss, Lewis was a nervous wreck in that fight. I think it's just as well that Lewis didn't have an immediate rematch. And that's another thing as well. We don't know how Anthony Joshua was going to react psychologically. He might be able to hold it together against Ruiz. Then again, he might fall apart. You don't know how he's going to react. And what I'm saying is, that's a risk that you don't need to take right now. What do you need to take it for? He's already a multi-millionaire. He's already ticked the box of being unified champion. Why do you need to take the risk now of fighting Ruiz again? What's so desperately, worrying about taking a couple years away from championship contention? Why is that so, frightening to some people? I don't get it. I'm looking to see Anthony Joshua become the best version of a fighter he can possibly be. Yeah? I obviously am banking on the idea that AJ can work his way back up to championship level. I definitely think he can. Yeah? If the desire is there, I definitely think he can. And I think because that's my trainer's hat on, thinking about how you best develop a fighter to making the best fighter he can possibly be. And again, just to finish on this whole PBC in-house, they're going to freeze everybody else out. I don't buy it. PBC, how many heavyweights have they got? They got Andy Ruiz, they got Deontay Wilder, they got Ortiz, who's like 150 years old. Who else have they got? Outside of the PBC, you got Usyk, you got AJ, you got Dylan White, you got Tyson Fury, you got Hrgovic coming up, you got Dubois and Gorman coming up, you got a whole host of other heavyweights coming up who are not with PBC. Well, guess what that means? That means that the sanctioning bodies are not just going to be content with PBC fighters holding their belts at heavyweight. No, they're going to want other fighters to be able to fight for their belts. And if all those fighters go up against the Al Haymon fighters, what, you think the Al Haymon fighters are going to win every time? Of course they're not. So this whole idea, this fear that some people have, as far as I'm concerned, it's an irrational fear that PBC are going to be able to monopolize the heavyweight division. It's not going to happen. The division is too stacked. There's too much talent. There's too much talent outside of the PBC for that to happen. Yeah, so the fighters, not just AJ, they will get their shots. Even if AJ don't take the Ruiz rematch, Ruiz goes and fights Wilder, them belts are not going to stay with PBC for that long. I mean, 2 years at the absolute maximum, they might stay in PBC, all of the belts. Sooner or later, them belts are going to come out of PBC. That's just what's going to happen. Yeah, there's no way that they're going to be able to keep him for very long. So that's my take on it. My stance remains firm. I think it's best for Anthony Joshua to not take the Andy Ruiz rematch next, because even if he beats Ruiz, he's going to be thrown into the deep end in championship fights against mandatories and all kind of fighters whose style he may not necessarily be ready for. Yeah? Sometimes you need to take a step back and take it easy. Yeah? Learn how to deal with certain styles at a lower level and then gradually step it up again, rather than just throwing him straight back into the fire where it could be life and death, particularly now that he's shown this vulnerability. All AJ's opponents are going to be going in there now looking to chin him. Going to be looking to chin him with extra. I mean, maybe they were always looking to chin him, but now it's going to be with extra confidence and belief. Even if they get dropped, they think, I can catch him. I can do him. Yeah, if I just get him with a good shot, he's going to tire, because we've seen he doesn't recover well from being hurt. So, yeah, I'm looking at it from a fighter development standpoint, whereas other people seem to be looking at it from what? They care about Matchroom. They care about, money and all these kind of things. AJ's already made money. And personally, I don't give a shit about Matchroom. Right? Matchroom is, putting on great shows and have done great things for boxing over the past few years. But I'm more concerned about the fighters rather than the promotional company. Because if Matchroom is gone, well, there'll be a different promotional company to replace him. I'm not so worried about Eddie Hearn and, the reputation of his company and what he's doing. I'm not so worried about that. I'm more concerned about the fighters. Yeah, and what's best for them in terms of developing their skills and taking the necessary steps to become the best version of themselves as a fighters as they can possibly be. So that's my take on it. Drop your take in the comment section below. It's happening. I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.